Hi everybody, welcome to our belting webinar. This is very exciting. Our first week's topic is efficient belting. My name is Billy. I'm going to give you a quick overview of how Zoom works. At the very bottom of your screen, you're going to see a chat button. I'm going to type in the chat right now, hi. And so if you have any questions as they come up today, just put them in the chat. I'll be watching the chat and I will make sure all the questions get answered at the end during our Q&A session. You don't have to wait until the end. Put your questions in as soon as they come up because they will be answered in the order they come up. Today's topic is efficient belting, and Jeannie will be working with Katie Erda and Rebecca Mikes. Also, if at any point in time Jeannie wants to ask anybody any questions, under participants, there's a button that will say raise hand or lower hand. And so just know if she asks anybody to raise your hand, don't do it like this because there's too many faces and we won't be able to catch it. So just under participants, click the raise hand button. Without further ado, I'll pass it on to Jeannie.
Thank you, Billy. I am very grateful to Billy Gollner, who is our media whiz, for making this possible, and to the assistance that we get from Jeff Costello and Andrea Lutis, who are faculty members of our Baldwin Wallace Levetry Institute. And I'm so excited! It's so fun to do this. Welcome to everybody. It's so wonderful to see familiar faces, faces that have been gone for a while, and of course to meet new people. I didn't know I was going to have so much fun doing these webinars, but they're the highlight of my week now. And so the one thing I want you to know is that I want to be useful to you. That's always my highest priority. I want to be of use from a practical, understandable standpoint. So, because if you don't have the information given to you in a way that you can chew and digest, it's useless. It's just more blah, 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 blah. We got enough of that. We don't need more. Because of this forum being the way it is, we are limited and we have to just live with that. But it also makes it possible for us to reach out to people who might not normally be able to show up in an in-person situation. So that's also a wonderful thing. Now, somatic voice work means, soma means body, as psyche means mind. So somatic voice work is oriented toward helping people grow both physical and auditory awareness. How do we hear and how do we feel sound making when we're making sound? There's also a psychological and emotional component because we want to create an atmosphere that's safe. So people feel like they can make a mistake, they can fall down, they can sound terrible. We don't care. We just make the whole process as user-friendly and as open as we can. I also want to acknowledge, because for those of us here in the United States, we had an extremely turbulent 2 weeks here. On top of our virus, we have also had a lot of protesting over the death of an African-American man named George Floyd, who was captive under a white policeman's knee and died. So in recognition of Black Lives Matter and of all oppressed peoples everywhere, somatic voice work has taken a stand publicly in our mission statement that we honor all races equally, all preferences of how people express themselves as one. We don't make any differentiation from human beings to human beings. And we support the Black community in standing for their rights. And I want you all to know that that's a very important thing to all of us. That doesn't have anything necessarily to do with belting, but if you watch the belting webinar that I did about the history and origins, a great deal of that sound came to this country with the slaves that had their own culture, their own music, and they took it with them when they came. When you are outdoors, if you want to sing in the open, belting is a sound that will carry, particularly if you figure out how to do it in a way that you don't feel tired while you do it. And so we owe a great deal to our African American ancestors who have had enormous influence on our contemporary commercial music styles. Classical music came from Europe, came from the kings and queens and the church, from the royalty and the church, and was passed down to the average people over time. But our contemporary commercial music comes up from the people. It comes from people making music in their own lives on a daily basis, for community, for religious practice, for family expression. And we are learning to honor that music and its roots and traditions with the same regard that those of us who were trained to be classical musicians also learned to respect that. Now, I sent out, I hope you all had time, poor Billy was getting umpty-ump last-minute registrations and had to keep up with all that, but I sent you something called What You Need to Know About the Vocal Quality called Belting. So if you have that, you could take a look at it. First of all, you should know that there are many kinds of ways to be a belter. And we can describe the sound as light, bright, brassy, powerful, projecting, intense, wide open, deep, full, and impressive. And probably a whole bunch of other words besides those. We don't generally think of it as being really beautiful, but that's also in the ear of the listener. You know, maybe some people do think of it that way. We would probably not describe it as soothing and calming, tranquil, peaceful, laid back, easy, gentle, or sweet, partly because belting is loud. It's by definition loud. And so when it is sung and not just yelled, it is very musical and often has a vibrato and is certainly pitch accurate and is certainly under the control of the singer. So that means that the belter can also sing softly when he or she wants to do that. In certain styles, like rock, there may be other ingredients. So there may be noise or roughness or deliberate grittiness in the sound. And I don't teach all those things, but there are people in this world who do. And if you have somebody that wants to do metal singing, you can learn to make some of those sounds without hurting yourself, but that is not something I'm going to cover in this series. So you should just know that. If students come in and their belting is very tight and they're squeezing their throat, you don't want that. It's not a good idea. But people do all kinds of strange maneuvers in order to get what they think is a belt sound, and you're going to run into that. And there are even a few approaches that teach that. They teach that you should squeeze this and pull on that and move these things around and do funny things on purpose with your larynx and your vocal folds. And I don't I don't go along with that at all. It seems to me that if you can get the instrument to function freely, you can get it to make almost any sound. Human beings make all sounds. So nobody invented belting, nobody owns belting, nobody has the only best way to belt. Anybody who goes in that direction is not a really good pedagogue. They're not really high level. There can't be one way to do anything as long as we're talking to human beings. It's easy to hold on to a belted note because of the vocal production, which I'm not going to talk about too much this webinar. It may come up. And so that has to do with how the vocal folds work at a micro level, like below the level that you could see with your eye or even with a strobe. But the amount of time that the vocal folds touch and close, which is called the open-closed quotient, which is happening in milliseconds, can be variable. So belting, as we understand it from science, is a long closed quotient, so that the vocal folds are together, close, 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 open, close, 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 open, close, 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 open. And therefore, not a lot of air gets out, and it's not hard to hold on to something for a long time. In fact, there's a very famous song called Johnny One Note, and the note goes on for quite a long time in the middle of the song. It's a C. You know, hey, Johnny One Note, da 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 dee da da. And at some point, it's a kind of sustained for like a long time. And people are like, oh, wow. It's like, actually, nah, it's not so hard. The airflow changes as the vocal fold function changes. That's not me saying that. That's for science telling us that. I have a wonderful slide from Dr. Johan Sundberg in Sweden, where he did studies on all different kinds of singers, and I use that in my presentations to back up my philosophy that how you sing affects how the air moves. Now, if you have somebody who is a large, sturdy person with a powerful, energized voice, that person is going to be a lot more likely to be a belter than somebody who talks like this and weighs 90 pounds. Hi, I want to be a belter. And then you can sit there as a teacher going, oh, good, that's wonderful. Great. Now, the cheap, easy way, the put a Band-Aid on it way, is to just try to get the student to sing in their nose. That gets taught a lot. Oh, belting, that's just loud singing in your nose. Hopefully not. That's not a good idea. But if you have a student who's going to be in a production in 2 weeks, it's better than sounding like this. You don't want this. So you have to be able to make some adjustments, and those are vowel changes, vowel sound changes. You could think of that as an acoustic change. You can think of it as a placement difference, a formant difference. All of those are descriptions of the same thing. But if the student doesn't have much by way of response, and beginning people don't, that includes adults, you can't just say, well, make the sound more like this, because probably they can't. If they could, why would they need you? So your job is to wake up the system, is to get the things that move, and to move a lot, and then to move quickly, so that the system responds with a high level of kinesthetic responsiveness. So if you have someone who only talks like this and they never get any louder than this, and they say, I want to learn how to be a belter, and I don't ever do anything, but this is how I talk and this is how I sing. I gotta sing like this. You have a lot of work to do there. The system has to move. The mouth has to move. The lips have to move. The tongue has to change shape and adjustment. The jaw's gotta go down. The face muscles have to respond. The posture has to be good. The breathing coordination to get the breath to go as far into the torso as possible, and then to keep the rib cage steady and to activate the belly muscles while you're exhaling. All those things are learned behaviors. You don't just do them. Although some people may have a more predilection to do that than others. This is how you discover over a period of time what are the natural tendencies of this voice, of this person. Who is this? And it takes at least a couple of years of regular, consistent work to know. And you can't ask them. They don't know. How would they know? They have nothing to go by. It's kind of like if you make an analogy of, are you a good dancer? Well, if you've never taken any dance lessons, how would you know? Or if you've never tried to dance, how would you know? So even people who are good dancers, who have natural coordination and grace, don't just know how to do tap dancing, or they don't just know how to do an arabesque. They don't just know how to do the Lindy. You have to learn. And so if you're coordinated, you have an advantage. If you've had some training, you have an advantage. But every professional dancer will tell you when they go outside their home-based training, they have to relearn some of the movements in their bodies. And that doesn't make them not talented or stupid. It just means that's kinesthetically and in the brain, it's a whole other way to program things. So patience is always needed. And you also have to encourage the students to be patient. If you want a quick fix, if you just want to have them go, ah, like a bad I Love Lucy episode, Ethel, ah, you can do that. But I wouldn't call that singing, okay? So it's not where you want to go if you're serious about pedagogy. And so you have to remember it's possible to be a belter, belting out a belt song, and that includes the vocalist, the vocal production, and the music. And that's not how we describe other styles. I don't say, oh, I'm a classicaler, classicalizing a classical song. Wouldn't make sense. So the word as a descriptor, it has many different kinds of connotations. Then if you take a look at the handout called Efficient Belting, Week 1, if somebody comes in, and this is not just true in belting, but if somebody comes in and says, oh, you know, I have trouble on my E, F sharp up here, and everything else is good, I just want to work on that. Don't do that. Because if this is wrong, all of this is also wrong. You don't just get a problem in one spot. You have a whole instrument, a whole voice, and you don't want to just, okay, I'm a belter, and then everything else about my singing is a mess, and you don't even make a connection. You can't do that. If you are going to have integrity as a voice, as a person, you need to be able to have without having to reinvent the wheel. It's not hard. I'm 71 years old. Okay? So. Okay, those are pitch changes. I don't have a vowel there. I'm just singing bleh. But I shouldn't have trouble if I have a functional machine. I should have about 2 octaves, right? And then the vocal quality, which is the register quality, and that comes from changes in the vocal folds in the larynx, is a response to the pitch you're on, the volume you're at, and the vowel sound you're sustaining, if you are sustaining a vowel. Okay? So you have a register quality, you have a vowel sound quality, and you have pitch and volume. That's all. You don't have anything else. Okay? Unless you want to get esoteric. The register quality and the pitch come from the vocal folds in the throat and larynx. The volume comes from the air pressure and the amount of resistance that the vocal folds give to the pressure, and then the length of the vocal folds is the pitch, so that has to do with the rate. And then the vowel sound is everything that happens from the larynx to your lips, inside, the whole thing. Okay? Now, if you don't have a lot of response on the outside, and a lot of people who start out don't, forget talking about the inside. That doesn't come until a long way down the road. If you can barely keep your mouth open, how are you going to change your soft palate? You know, that doesn't happen that way. So in the beginning, we spend a lot of time talking about the things you can see and touch. You know, so we're going, ah, ah, oh, ooh. Because those are things you can not only control, but you can ask the student to look at. Open your mouth. No. Open your mouth. No. That's what happens. So for those people who are new to the work, to help with that, we have props. And so if the student has trouble keeping the mouth open, we give them a little help. And we use 3 different size corks. This is the medium size cork, so you could put this in the front, just between the teeth. That keeps their mouth open. That's helpful. Okay. That keeps their jaw steady, keeps the position in a fixed adjustment. And then if the student is a little older and a little more flexible or has sung before, you get a wine cork. Until they can go without the cork. Okay. Now we do have little bitty ones, but we're not going to deal with those in this series. Maybe because my first training was dance. I learned that you start in a dance class either at the bar or on the floor, and you do all the stretches and you do all the different things with your body, and then you do a combination. You do a little mini dance. And then as singers, we warm up, we do stuff to get the voice going, and then we sing a song. But if the doing stuff to get the voice going is just making sound like from random, I looked at the tree and I sang some sounds, that's not really going to help you much by way of function. It just sort of warms up what you already have. And a lot of singing training is oriented to that. So maybe open your mouth more, or maybe only open your mouth this way, and then one of about 40,000 million different kinds of ways to use your ribs in your belly to do breath support. And maybe if you can do those, then some kind of vibration somewhere, pick a place, your nose, your cheekbones, your eyeballs, your forehead, your eyebrows, the top of your head, the back of your head. You can't control any of that on purpose. So, I mean, you cannot literally vibrate the bones in your face because you decide to vibrate the bones in your face. All you can ever do is make a sound. So we need to talk about what's on this. Is when we are working with the whole voice and we're problem solving the whole voice. We need to have a vigorous, comfortable, energetic speaking voice. Now, my mother was from New Orleans, and she was taught, she would be quite old now, 120, I think, the ladies talked like this in their head voice. That was the ladylike way to talk. And if you went to Miss Potter's finishing school, like somebody like Julia Child, you were taught the same thing, that quality was considered cultured and refined. So Julia Child, although her voice was low, oh, this is a big fish. Oh, let's get this big fish and cut it up. Yes, very good. Okay? So that's a head register dominant vocal production, and that is how ladies were taught to talk up until baby boomers, and we came along and said, hey, we want to have some personal power, and our speaking voice pitches dropped about an octave in one generation. So everybody's like, hi, how are you? I'm a powerful person. So if you don't have that, if you have someone whose speaking voice is more lyric, meaning lighter, you have to cultivate some energy in the lower range pitches. That can take time. Some people can't do that, particularly women who've been trained to sing classically, who have not necessarily been taught to do much with chest register. They can often have a lot of trouble accessing chest register, like finding it. And just because you're singing a low pitch does not necessarily mean you have an active chest register. So that's something that you need to know as intellectual information, but you also need to hear. So if somebody is going, that's as loud as I can sing there. Well, that's a legitimate response, and that's going to help you with belting. Nothing, zero, not helping you. And if you take that and then you layer on top of it, sing in your nose, all you're doing with that person is tying their throat into a nice little pretzel. Not good, okay? So what you need to be able to cultivate is some kind of energy, and this counts for males and females. But you have to understand in the male voice the difference between a tenor, a baritone, and a bass in terms of pitch range. A true tenor doesn't have much in terms of range below C or B, the octave below middle C. Okay, this B. And so they're going to sort of bottom out there if they don't have much chest. Somebody who has a lot of chest could go down to the A, but then when you get below that, you're dealing with the baritones and the basses, and the basses can often sing an F down there, low F. You also have to understand that a tenor is going to be pretty comfortable on the middle C, C sharp, and D, but a bass is going to be really up at the top and having some awareness that, wow, I'm really up high. That's for you to know. So if you're new to teaching, or you don't have a background in classical music where you understand that, you have to learn it. In the women, when we're talking about belting, we're usually talking about going up to, the old idea was to a B flat, a B, or a C above middle C. But over the decades, that boundary has disappeared, and now you go up as far as you can go without killing yourself until your eyeballs fall out. And so you have to understand pitch range in relationship to vocal function and natural function. And I'm not going to talk about that tonight, but you can learn to be a high rock belter, but if you really want to survive, you have to choose. You cannot do that and also turn around and sing classical music without killing yourself in a sustainable way. Same thing, the reverse is true. If you want to be comfortable in any style that's very raw and edgy, you're not going to turn around and sing a sweet little folk song and sound nice. So there are limits. Every person on earth is capable of making every sound that human beings make, but when you get to the level of becoming professional or training somebody as if they might be professional, there are limits in terms of personal boundaries and also musical boundaries. That's information that you can learn. With a beginner, if you get them up to an A or a B flat as a woman, and they're pretty comfortable, that's enough. You could start with that. Today's music pays no attention to any of that. Composers write what they write, and it is where it is, and it's all on the singer to be able to do that or not, without any explanation of, okay, I've learned to do this, and now that cost me X. Like everybody acts like there's no cost. Yeah, there's a cost. And you can talk to all the very famous singers who've had to take time off a big tour because they blew their vocal folds out. There's a cost. So as teachers, as pedagogues, if you don't know that stuff, you can learn it. I teach it. Now, I'm not teaching it tonight, but it's learnable. And it has nothing to do with squeeze this or pull this or put your larynx in your kneecaps or put them in your eyebrows. It has to do with the things I've already talked about. And so I'm a light lyric soprano. I don't have a big bombastic voice. I didn't have a big bombastic voice when I was 30, 40 years old. And now I'm an old lady, so I surely don't have that. And I have a weakness in my left vocal cord called a paresis, which makes the middle pitches in my voice unsteady. In spite of that, if we're here, that's my jazz register. Probably on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is piano, 10 is forte, it's probably a 5. I'm not really struggling too much with that. It's sort of what comes out. I grew up in a working class Italian household where we yelled a lot. It was normal. You know, my mother would stick her head out the window and yell, "Jeanette, come home for dinner!" Even though she was Irish. And I would yell back, "Okay, just a minute!" So I was predisposed to that. Now, a lot of people didn't live that way, but in any case, yeah, 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 yeah. Well, that's not real high, but that's a belty place. That's a G above middle C. So if I go higher, and I'm not overly warmed up because I haven't been teaching. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's still not costing me anything here, right? Yeah, 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 yeah. Hi, how you doing? Right, that's very different than yeah, 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 yeah. So in those sounds, what's going on in my throat is everything is different. All of it. And so if we want to learn how to do the first one, you have to have the ability to go, hello, hi. And not everybody has that capacity. The reason being, if you don't have that nice and solid and secure, that when you go up, you will get, hello, hi. And you can get used to that, but it's very bad to do. You know, it's just not, it doesn't hold up. And over time, your body goes, no, 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 no. So the security of keeping the larynx in a comfortable position does still allow for it to adjust, to move a little up or down, depending on the vowel and the quality. But you cannot skip that. That's basic. If you skip it, someday down the road, you're going to have to go back and reconnect to it, because that's the only way to stay really out of trouble. And this is in keeping with the principles that you would find in speech pathology with people who work with the voice, that you want the sound to be comfortable. When it gets to be really uncomfortable, you got to stop and go, what do I do with that? And honestly, people, if that was easy, you wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be here, because people would just sing, and it would just all come out, and it would be easy, and then they could sing rock today and opera tomorrow, and all would be great. Clearly, that's not how the instrument functions, or we would have been there by now. It's 2020. Wouldn't somebody have figured that out? But nobody has. Not really. So that's what I meant when I said limits. You cannot be a sprinter and a long-distance runner at a high level at the same time. It's very difficult to be a prima ballerina and a tap dancer at the same time. Okay? So these are concepts, these are philosophies. You don't have to accept them just because I said so. I invite you to try them out in your body, in your throat. Be the guinea pig. See where you get. Particularly if you're dealing with singers who are professionals. Now, I know a lot of you are not. You're dealing with students, children, teens, amateur adults who sing at church. That's fine. But there isn't any reason for you to treat those people as lesser just because they're not going to stand on the stage at a Broadway theater or at the Met or at Carnegie Hall. You can treat those people as if maybe someday they might get there, or they might be in a performance at whatever town or city you're in that has professionals in it who were there, so that they can be on an even par with those people. Okay? Now, if you have any questions on any of that, you're welcome to submit them in the chat room, and Billy will see them.
Great. There were some questions about exercises for energizing people's speaking voice.
Okay, well, we're gonna talk about that in the lesson, so we'll get
Great. The rest of the questions I think can all wait till the end.
Okay.
They're great, but they could wait.
Yeah. Now, you people who want to learn how to teach belting, with me, you can't just learn how to teach belting. You have to learn how to teach singing. Okay, this is not McDonald's. This is not the latest quick trick on 10 tips how to get high notes. This is serious vocal pedagogy. It's an elite system for serious teachers who want to be the highest level they can be at a professional level, regardless of whether or not we're dealing with professionals as in like famous people or they make a lot of money. Hopefully, if you have a doctor, the doctor doesn't treat you less professionally if you're not a famous or wealthy person. A doctor treats you the same no matter who you are as a patient, or they're not a good doctor. So as professionals with teachers of singing, if all you want to do is teach people to yell or sing on their nose, that's not high-level professional behavior. And it's incumbent upon you to learn terminology, to learn function and range. And if you don't know how to do that, you can learn. That's why we have the Somatic Voice Work Institute. This year it's online. It's in July. We'll tell you more about that later. And even if you do know, there's always more to know, and that includes me. I'm always learning. That's why I always go to conferences. I attend seminars. I read books. I don't have all the answers, and God forbid I would ever think that. I just have been teaching for 49 years, so I've had a chance to gather a lot of information, and I've always insisted on singing everything. Whatever. Okay, so I think we'll start with Katie, who is the student of Michelle Rosen.
Awesome. I have a quick bio to read about Katie. So, Katie is a junior at LaGuardia High School, studying vocal music there. She's been in the senior chorus since last year. She sang with Brooklyn Youth Chorus for 9 years and left at the end of her sophomore year of high school. She's taken private lessons for 7 of those years at Brooklyn Youth Chorus and continues studying with Michelle Rosen. And yeah, I'll pass it on.
Okay. So, hi, Katie.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Right. I would like to know if you had a chance to warm up today.
Just a little bit, some humming and lip trills, but that's about it.
Okay. So that's really where we have to start then, because I'm not going to ask you to go into belting if you haven't sung. So this would be a short general warm up. So I want you to sing. Oh, wait! Before I do that, how old are you now?
I'm 16.
And what part are you singing in choir?
I sing soprano too.
Okay, good. Okay, so you're gonna do. Now let me just use you as my guinea pig. So for people that are not used to somatic voice work, or for those of you that are tuning in for this particular series, I have now information about Katie's background and training, her age, and her voice part. So as she's singing, I would say what I'm hearing is congruent with the information I just received. And if she sang in a different way than this, I would then go, it doesn't sound like what she said she was going to be sounding like, especially for her age. So right now, I don't have to do anything with this information. I just have to leave her alone and let her sing, because we're going to evolve out of this. But first, the point is to let the person sing wherever they sing. Jump in the pool and swim, and if you don't drown, I'm not going to rescue you. Find out what it is that the student is doing before you jump in and fix things. Leave them alone. Even if Katie's doing a great job, but even if she wasn't, you don't fix it in the first 30 seconds that the person starts to make sound, because then you're assaulting the person and you're going to make them go, you don't want that. Okay, good. Katie, that was great. Go
Jeannie,
on.
sorry, can you just turn your piano down maybe like 20% in the volume?
Sir.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure she can hear the pitch. Is that loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so Katie, go on. First,
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
put the ooh first. Good. Okay. Now let's do something like, you said you had done some lip trills before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do some more of those. So let's do. Good. As an exercise, lip trills, tongue trills, and relaxed humming are all common exercises. They are called semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, and they help make the sound a little easier. They allow the vocal fold to vibrate a little bit more efficiently. They're useful tools. We can also use other things like singing through a straw, but you can never learn to be a belter by doing semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. I mean, you can do them from now until hell freezes over, but it's not going to help you be a belter. It will help keep your sound clearer and help make it stronger, and it'll give your vocal folds a little bit of a chance to get some more resistance or better closure. But a belt sound has to have strength in the larynx, not just having vocal fold strength. And so the position in the throat can be more open, more actively open. So these are nice warm-up exercises because they're not too stressful. And there's many varieties of these. Some people do raspberries. Those, I don't like those, but some people do them. And any exercise that goes in this direction, and there's lots of them, are on this track for modified vocal fold closure or a more efficient behavior. They also tend to keep the larynx relaxed, but you can't guarantee that because you can do these with a pretty tight throat, so you have to be careful about that. Katie, go ahead. Nice. Let's do one more. Let's do staccatos on ah, and keep them light and bouncy. Ah, 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 ah. Good. Now, teachers, this exercise is hard. You have to make very rapid pitch changes, and if you're doing them a cappella, the pitch accuracy is difficult. So especially if the student is just warming up and you hear some notes that are a little off pitch, forget about it, forget about it. It just means that the instrument's coordination here is not as 100% as it's going to get to be, and that you have to tolerate some of that because the nature of the exercise is to help the person's voice be lighter and more flexible, okay? Go on, Katie, do the same thing. Those are really pretty.
Thank you.
Now we could go a little higher than that, but I'm not at the moment going to go much beyond it for time constraints purposes. So that was a G, high G. Now let's do the lower pitches. So let's do ya 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 ya, and I want you to think that you're going in the direction of your speaking voice. Ya 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 ya.
Ya 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 ya.
Now, I want you to move your jaw. Look at me. Ya, 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 ya.
Ya 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 ya. Ya 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 ya. Ya 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 ya.
Yeah. Billy, I see that Dr. Karen Hall McNamara has raised her hand. Is that a question I should answer right this minute?
It's something she wanted to add about the history of belting. She's going to talk at the end.
Good.
I've spoken with her.
Okay. Go ahead, Katie.
Ya 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 ya.
Still not moving your jaw so much. You're moving your tongue. Ya, ya, ya. Try to do ya, ya, ya.
Ya 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 ya.
Hmm?
Ya 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 ya.
That's nice. One more.
Ya 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 ya.
Okay, so that was the high note there was an A. We could go beyond that, but right now we're not.
Ya 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 ya.
Good. Now, Katie, when you breathe in, smile a little more. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Ya 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 ya.
Good. That shortens the vocal tract by retracting the lips. It makes it, anytime it's shorter, it's going to pick up the high frequencies more. And that is going to make the sound what we would call brighter, which means that it picks up the high frequencies a little bit more, okay? This is what the classical people all used to call spread. Yeah, spread. Okay? Go ahead. Let's do this one.
Ya 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 ya.
Yep.
Ya 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 ya.
Good.
Ya 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 ya.
Yep.
Ya 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 ya.
Okay. So now, I want you to say, in your normal speaking voice, today is Monday.
Today is Monday.
Okay. So you can hear that there's a certain amount of energy or brightness or intensity in her speaking voice. But it's not heavy. It's not, today is Monday. She didn't do that. Okay. But she also didn't say, today is Monday. She didn't do that. So by definition, we call that sound she just made mix. Because it's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, which is good. Most healthy sounds are some version of a mix. The warmer sound is a slightly different position inside. And it's not that you can't belt in that position. You can. Patti LuPone uses a very long, dark adjustment, and she's a belter for sure. But most of the time, if you look at a good belter, you're going to see, you're going to see that shape. And even in the classical tenors like Luciano and Domingo, you're still going to see, it kind of goes with the territory. You can talk about formants and laryngeal positions here if you want to, but it's not necessary. And it can get in the way, okay? So it's better to say to somebody, smile a little more, because people can do that. Even a 6-year-old knows the difference between and So if you don't get too esoteric, you can all know that, but the student doesn't need to know that, right? Yeah, she's in mix. So now she's doing ya, ya. No, sorry. Today is Monday. Do it again.
Today is Monday.
That's mix. Okay? Is it a head mix or a chest mix? Right now we don't care. Okay? Just mix, right? So now I want her to sing ya, 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 ya again, but see if she can do it a little louder.
Ya 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 ya. Ya 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 ya.
Good. A little brighter.
Ya 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 ya.
Now, if you're paying attention and you have good earphones or good speakers, you can hear that that was a slightly different vowel sound, but not different registration.
Ya 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 ya.
Good.
Ya 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 ya.
Maybe one more.
Ya 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 ya.
Now, I want you to say today is Monday in the sound that you're singing.
Today is Monday.
Now, would you normally Talk that loud?
No.
No. Not unless you were at a party.
Yeah.
Okay? So you have the capacity to make the sound louder, which is great, but that is more intensity or more volume than you would normally need under normal conversational circumstances, right? So that's the first thing, is does she have that available? Yeah, she does. That's good, because then we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If she didn't have it, she would have to go back and work on it and develop it. Okay? So we're going to spend a little more time here, and we're going to do a slide. So we're going to do ah. So that's ah, and slide between the pitches. Now, is that in any way uncomfortable in your throat or anywhere else?
No.
Okay. Good. Good. Now, Katie, on your own rating, if 1 is pianissimo and 10 is fortissimo, how loud is that to you?
I would say 7.
Okay, good. So, I mean, it's hard for us as electronic listeners to necessarily hear that when we don't have a sound pressure meter to tell us. But that's a 7, which means it's pretty loud. It's at least between mezzo forte and forte. Very important for us to ask about that, because you don't want her singing repetitively at 10. Why? You know, that's not where you want to develop something. But she does have the capacity to do this, and it is pretty vigorous, which is great. Okay, but we're still below the break. Ha ha. So let's go on. Did I do ah first and then ah? I think
At first, I think.
ah first.
Yeah.
The reason we're doing these two vowels is we're trying to bring the ah closer to the ah in terms of the behavior of the vowel sound. Okay. Two more. One more. Okay. Is it still a 7, Katie?
I would say it went up to an 8 by the end.
So that's part of what happens as you're belting. It tends to want to be louder as you go up because you're going up. Okay? Now, that's a G on top. If she were struggling there, we wouldn't go any further because, you know, again, if you can only lift your leg this high in a dance class and the choreographer wants you to do a step where you have to lift your leg this high, you're not going to be able to do that in the dance. So you need to be able to lift your leg this high at class so that when you get this high in your choreography, it's possible. So we don't start out banging away on C and C sharp and D as a way to develop the high belt when they can barely sing what she just sang on the G. That's just a way to make a person tired. Okay? And then there is no obvious change here to a lighter quality. Brighter, more intensified, but not lighter. That would make it mixier, which would be something also okay, but different. All right. So how are we going to go now above this breaky place? And this is where we use a couple things. We use volume and vowel sound to negotiate with the muscles inside the throat, especially the muscles in the base of the tongue, because the larynx is hanging off of those muscles in the front and it's being affected by the muscles in the sides of the throat. Those are the swallowing muscles, the constrictors in the back. And then that also has an effect on whether or not the soft palate can move. And I already know that her soft palate can do that because the vowel sound adjusted as she went. Now, if I'm saying these things to you and that's Chinese and Martian language and you don't understand any of it, that's okay. I mean, that's why you're here. But you do have to be able to be conversant with simple terms. I'm not making up any words, and what they mean in terms of sound, right? So we're going to try the tongue on the lower lip. Now, this allows the larynx to gently rise inside, if you're lucky. I mean, if these muscles are tight, it doesn't do anything. But this is a way to coax these muscles to change and adjust so that you can do this position without trying to position your larynx. You're not trying to position your larynx, but your larynx is going to come along for the ride if we're lucky. It's the caboose on the train. If the engine is going somewhere, the caboose has to come too. So here we're going to start on A flat, and we're going to do ah. Now the reason I have my head up is because it allows me to have a little more room in my throat for my larynx to move. And right now we're not worried about keeping the larynx steady. That can come later a little bit more. This is just about moving back and forth on the slide and being consistent and comfortable. So Katie, try that. Ah. Okay, now see if you can not have your head quite so far this. Okay, think you're drinking from a bottle of water, glug, 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 only here. And then the rest of the space has to come from your mouth position. Ah, okay, I don't want you here, that's too much, all right? Now, did you feel a movement of any kind in your throat from one note to the next? Or
Yeah, I noticed the first time I did it, I didn't slide as much, and I paid attention to it more the second time, and I felt it.
right,
Yeah.
right. So the second time, the the throat was free to adapt itself to the pitch and the vowel, and then it was more comfortable, and it also sounded more consistent. So that was good. Let's do it again. That was good. Now make sure you take a good breath first. Yeah, nice. Now, on that note, that's B as in boy, above middle C, the sound did get a little lighter or a little mixier. Well, is that bad? Did I tell her not to do that? No. Because that's the natural response her throat wants to make so that it doesn't get hurt. It doesn't get into a place where she's screaming or pushing or hurting herself. So the outside here, did I hear the same vowel? Yes. Did I still hear ah? Yes. Was the volume pretty consistent? Yes. But was there still an adjustment, an acoustic adjustment? Yeah. Right? Because that's the only way the throat can stay comfortable in still making this sound. So that was really good. Now, I don't know how much further we're going to get before the throat goes, okay, that's enough. We'll see. Ah. And that's where the throat, no, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Okay, so that's important because that's Mother Nature's way of saying, excuse me, no. And we respect that because otherwise she's going to get tired, right? But suppose we say to the throat, all right, throat, you can have your way over here, but we're going to come at you from a different direction. So this is where nasality can be a good doorway. It can be an assist. It can be a bridge, not a destination. But this is where we can go to as a device. So now we're going to do nya, 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 nya. And I call this the bratty kid exercise. Okay, so let's do that.
Nya, 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 nya.
Now you gotta move. Nya, 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 nya.
Nya, 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 nya. Nya, 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 nya. Nya, 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 nya.
One more.
Nya, 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 nya.
Okay. Make the bottom note the loudest note.
Nya, 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 nya.
Now, as you go higher, make your high note more open so it's more nya instead of nya.
Nya, 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 nya.
Okay, so that's the D. So that way we got a whole step higher than the exercise we just did, because this is a little easier for the throat to manage. Okay, it wasn't like, forgive me, Katie, I'm going to speak nasty about you, but it's just an example. She didn't suddenly go from being stupid to smart on a whole note. Okay. You know, sometimes teachers say, well, if you could do this thing, why can't you do it? If you could do that, why you're not trying hard enough? It has nothing to do with that. So we don't want to label the students in some negative way because the throat decided it had to go someplace on its own. That is the nature of how throats operate. So we can laugh about it like we did. And we,
Yeah.
whoop, that didn't work. And that's what happens. So then you have an atmosphere of what happens if, and then you could crash into a wall and go, whoa, boy, that was a mess. And you laugh about it and you try again. It's my job to give her another exercise that might produce a better result. It's not her job to fix it and do it better. Because if she could fix it and do it better, she wouldn't need lessons. Can you tell that that's how I was taught and that I really didn't do well that way? Yeah. Okay. The vowel E, it does not lend itself to a belty sound. And so it's a really good intermediary vowel to work with because it's not really happy in a very badly chesty place. When you can get it to cooperate, it can be very useful. So we're going to go to the low pitches and we're going to do E. I'm not even sure I can do it as a good example because as soon as I don't sing and I don't practice and I don't make this sound in my voice, it goes away because it's not a natural behavior in my voice. But I'm going to try. So that's about here in chestiness. And I'm singing with my mouth relatively closed here on purpose. So, Katie, do the best you can. Don't push, but try to sing an E in your chesty sound down here. A to B. So we're going to just wait for the bus now. That means we're going to repeat the same exercise over and over and over again and be patient and wait. So now I'm going to do another sidebar. Those of you that just finished the mindfulness webinar, the Inner Side of Teaching webinar, you should be listening now with your enlarged ears. You should be listening for the context in which this work is taking place and noticing all the behaviors that Katie is giving us, okay? Go on, Katie. Very nice. Go back down. Here, there's a little bit of noise or graininess in the sound, a little edginess. That's okay. That's part of what this register.
Jeannie, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Bill. Good. Now, a little bit open your mouth. Drop your jaw a little more, Katie. Good. That's right. One more. Okay, so now we're going to do E-O. And a comfortable loud, like, maybe not more than 5.
E-O.
Good. That's fine.
E-O.
Go up. Stay louder than that. Oh.
E-O.
2 more in chest.
E-O.
Now, those of you that are listening, she's still not struggling. The veins in her neck are not popping out. She's not grimacing. She's not forcing anything. She's using her breathing. I don't have to ask her, is she comfortable? I can see that, but I will ask her, were you comfortable?
Yes.
Okay, good.
E-O.
Cool.
E-O.
Now we're going to sing glad, like the beginning of the word glad. And I want you to deliberately make it that nasty kid's place. So we're going to sing glad, 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 glad. And it's going to sound ugly, but that's okay. And make sure you move your chin up and down.
Glad, 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 glad. Glad, 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 glad. Glad, 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 glad.
Now your high note can be a little bit more mixy than that, so you can lighten up a bit.
Glad, 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 glad.
Good. Make sure the bottom feels nice and solid, like you're talking.
Glad, 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 glad.
Good. Talk, talk, talk.
Glad, 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 glad.
Okay, so now you're going to do glad, 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 and stay there.
Glad, 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 glad.
Okay, so that's an E flat. And that's a pretty good mixy chest, huh? Did that feel okay?
Yeah.
Would you say that that was belty?
It definitely felt comfortable, but I don't think it felt as belty as, the lower notes obviously do.
Okay, so but you have to live with that?
Mm-hmm.
Because as long as you still want to have your soprano voice, that's about as far as you can go right now at 17.
That's fine.
So that doesn't mean you're going to sound like that when you're 25. But right now, that's a good place. But that took you up quite a bit higher. And your throat was like, okay, whatever. So this is where you build the sound, right? And you went past that place where it cracked because we used the vowel sound and we also did the strengthening on the lower pitches first. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you. That really helped, and I can feel the difference for sure.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Before we would give Katie a song where she would sustain that pitch, that's at the E flat, I would give her a song that went to the C or the C sharp, because this pitch she just did was an exercise pitch, not a sustain. It's the same thing with the leg. From a choreographer, and this dancer can only go this high, and I ask her to do a dance where it has to go up here. That's not fair. So this is a good learning tool. And for those of you that are working with talented teenagers, which is what Katie is, this is a way for you to introduce this sound gently and kindly, but vigorously. And it's predicated on the fact that she has a good vocal production, she's using her breathing, she's had some training in other directions, and it's okay now for her to go in this direction. She's not going to hurt anything. And she's not going to derail her other sound that she needs for the rest of her life in school for a while. So Katie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kind of you to do that. Everybody give her virtual applause. Yay!
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, now the next person, Billy, is
Yeah. The next person is Rebecca. Jeannie, there was one quick question that came up multiple times. Do you mind quickly just addressing why you were asking her to move her jaw so much?
Yeah, because if you're going to belt, you really can't belt without moving your jaw. It comes with the territory of the laryngeal position and the stiffness in the base of the tongue. Oh, I end up singing like this. Oh, I'm going to belt for you now. Okay. Okay. You get stuck in that open mouth position. And yeah, you can belt in that position, but you can't articulate, you can't say words. And you're much more likely to get into a place where everything is immobilized, and your goal is always to keep the system movable. Okay? Belting tends to make everything pressured, and then it gets stuck in whatever position you're singing in, and the open positions are the more predominant sounds, so you've got to be able to move your mouth around.
Great. I'll just give a quick bio for Rebecca Mikes. So Rebecca Mikes is currently a junior theater major at the Las Vegas Academy of the Arts. She's been taking voice lessons for 2.5 years and is currently 16 years old. Her most recent shows are All Shook Up Ensemble and Spoon River Anthology, Girl Singer.
Okay. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. How have you been since I was out there?
Really good. I've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, Michelle tells me that. That's wonderful. Okay, so did you warm up?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So, how about let's start with ya. And you think of doing like a nice mixy sound. Ya, 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 ya.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, you're doing what the previous student was doing. You're doing this. Ya, 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 ya. And I want ya, 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 ya. Move your jaw up and down on each yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
See if you can move your jaw as much as you're moving your tongue. Your tongue is still moving more than your jaw.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Good. One more.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Now try glay, 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 glay.
Glay, 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 glay.
Yeah.
Glay, 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 glay. Glay, 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 glay. Glay, 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 glay.
Good. Now when you go down to the bottom, go all the way down. Glay.
Glay, 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 glay.
Okay.
Glay.
Glay. Yes. Okay. So Rebecca, can I talk about you like you were a specimen?
Sure.
Okay. Now, in terms of this part of the base of the tongue, we don't really have the programming in the brain to move that part of the tongue in the back on purpose. It's not how the brain is wired. So if you talk to somebody about moving in the base of the tongue, it's kind of like talking to the person about making sure that your digestive organs are working properly. It's not really something you can do a whole lot about by thinking of it. Okay? That's not exactly in that same, I couldn't think of a good analogy, but articulation of the back of the tongue, the base of the tongue, is a learned behavior, and it's very helpful. I guess we don't think too much about it in commercial music, but in classical music, if you're going to sing melismas, you have to have a really awake and very supple base of the tongue. Probably the closest thing would be if you were a violinist and you were just going to go beep, blah, 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 with your fingers and go skidding down the strings. That kind of dexterity, or if your pianist playing, where you're going to do this, you know, if you're a carpenter, you don't do that. It's not what your fingers do. So the cultivation of these light little quick movements comes from the staccato exercises. It comes from the articulatory exercises. And those are separate from register quality and pitch change. Those are more larynx behaviors and vocal fold behaviors. So it's the teacher's job to say, okay, now I got this and I got this and I got this, but we still don't have that and that and that. You can explain that to the student, but that only helps the student as a concept. Oh yeah, now I'm working on all these things, right? So Rebecca, what you did was good, but I would love for the back of the tongue to be a little more responsive, and I'm going to come at it indirectly, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go to Spooky Monster O. Hello, it was a dark and stormy night. And I want you to just sit there. So we're going to do, oh, not too loud, you know, like a comfortable volume. Right, just like that. That's fine. One more. Good. So that's on the bottom, people. That's G below middle C. Now we're going to go up again. I mean, I could go down another pitch or so, but I'm not going to. Go up. Better. Get to where the pitch is on the second note. Lighten up a little bit more on the high note. Back off and lighten up. That's better. That's still pretty chesty, but it's a little less pressured. Right. So that's a lighter sound, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's an important change. It's small, but it counts because the back of your tongue now is not so, you're not pressing on it, even though you weren't intending to be pressing on it. I mean, that kind of came along with how you were doing your chestiness, right? So this is a better place. Do it again. See if you can make your mouth a little teeny bit more oval shaped. Good. Oh. Now, pitch-wise, you're slightly sharp, so back off the volume a little bit. Good, that fixed it. Keep your mouth open. Okay. So now I want you to do what I did before with Katie. I want you to speak, but we're going to speak in this exaggerated place. So you're going to say, today is Monday.
Today is Monday.
Now do it a little softer. Today is Monday.
Today is Monday.
Okay, so now you're going to sing, it is a very nice day. Like you were kind of sleepy. Oh, it's a very nice day.
It is a very nice day.
Even sleepier than that. Oh, it's a very nice day.
It is a very nice day.
Oh, now move your jaw on each word.
It is a very nice day.
Now, when you change pitch, especially when you go lower, I want you to mentally think that something in your throat drops. So, duh. Okay? Go up again.
It is a very nice day.
Oh, you're still above the note. See if you can go lower.
It is a very nice day.
That's good. That's where you gotta go. Ho ho ho.
It is a very nice day.
Good. One more.
It is a very nice day.
So what's that like when you do that, Rebecca?
It's very different.
Can you tell me how it's different?
Just speaking it, like I was tired. Figuring that out.
Right, right. So what that does is it forces you to make something happen in your throat that in a normal everyday basis you have no reason to do, unless you're being a cartoon character or something like that, right? So teachers, I wanted you to notice that the pitch coordination that Rebecca was having, which is an issue that she has had to work on and has overcome with working with Michelle Latour, got better because she was having to do a little less work, and that was due to the position. And in this exercise, doing it the way she just did, the back of the tongue has actually dropped a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty sneaky because we changed the position of the back of the tongue by changing the vocal quality and the vowel sound quality and the volume. Okay? So that's the way, if you want to talk about functional changes, the student doesn't have to do anything except think about, how do I talk like that? That's enough to think. Right?
She doesn't go around talking like that. So why would she sing there?
But she understands it's just an exercise and it's getting her throat to do something that on its own it doesn't think it knows how to do. So, Rebecca, that was good. Let's do another batch of the O with your mouth a little bit rounded, and we'll do O. And just think of the volume as being some very kind of comfortable, moderate amount.
Oh.
That's fine. You got to fix the pitches here. So this is do, re, do, so, do, or 1, 2, 1, 5, 1. So that second note is close to the first one. So you went too far on that first.
Got it.
So sing this for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so sing 1, 2, 1.
1, 2, 1.
Okay, so this exercise is 1, 2, 1, 5, 1. Oh. So don't sing oh, just sing 1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
Good. Okay, so those are the notes. Now, we're going to do, instead of numbers, just O. So want to try it again?
Oh.
That was perfect.
Oh. Oh.
You fixed it! Good for you! Now, the high note was not quite where it needed to go, so you got to lighten up on the high note. Do it again.
Oh.
I can sing 1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
Yep. Now, 2 was a little too much above 2, so do 2 and don't go so far.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
Now, let's do this. In front of you, there's an invisible ladder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, mentally, you need to see that each rung of the ladder is the exact same amount of space. Okay? Can you picture that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want you to actually look at it. Now, take your hand and show me where each rung on the ladder is if we count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you're counting, look at your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so now you're going to do 1, 2, 1, 5, 1. Look at your hand.
Oh, the numbers?
1, don't even sing. 1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
Now, is that where 2 was before? No. See, you
No.
lost the ladder. Mentally see the ladder. 2's only over here. It's not up here. 1, 2, 1, 5, 1. So just talk, but look at what your mind has to see there.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
You can't do 2 as if it's just any old where. It has to be right where you put it. Do it again.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
Now you're going to sing. 1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
Did you look at your hand the whole time?
Most of the time.
Most of the time, but not in the beginning. Do it again.
1, 2, 1, 5, 1.
Okay. Now, oh. It's the same everything except just on O.
Oh.
Okay. Now, this isn't, you can put your hand down. This is a question of concentration, Rebecca. You have to make your mind go on this invisible pitch ladder as if your life depended on it, okay? It's like you could just literally reach out and touch this invisible ladder like you were a mime. You know, in the mime, well, you know, they have a wall, and then they can, you know, they have to see in their own mind that there's a wall there or you won't see it. So as you're learning the actual notes that we write on a piece of paper, in your brain, it would be helpful if you were more specific about what it is you're asking your throat to do. And the outside stuff we just did is a device. It's a device, it's a scaffolding to help you not kind of guess that you're going to 2 and hoping that you get there, and you don't actually find out until you're there. So that's not the best possible way. It's like if you have a target, you can see a target. You know, you're trying to get to that target. If you can't in your mind picture pitches, and some people can, but a lot of people can't, how do you substitute for that? Like, what do you tell your brain to concentrate on that's not just random? Okay? So we're using the ladder as a device to say, brain, hello, go over here, duh, 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 until the brain says to the throat that this is what it wants. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that's a whole thing you can keep working on with Michelle. I know you've already gotten a lot better. But let's go ahead and go back now to the A vowel. So see if we can get this more speaky, mixy, chesty thingamajiggy. So we're going to do the same exercise I did before. Ah. So this is, we're going from 1 to 5, back to 1, and then we're going up to 8. Okay? Ah. Okay? You don't have to use your hand, but try to think of that vowel sound on the nastier side. Yeah. Good. Now get all the way down into Santa Claus land on that first note. Okay, so the second note is the 5, and you went past the 5. See if you can find where the 5 is and go up. The other ones were correct. There you go. That was good. Brain has to know what it wants to think about. Nice. One more. You might have to open your mouth a little more on the high note, huh? in order for you to get better pitches on the top, you have to change the vowel sound some more. So that's another one of those things in the back, right? So if we help your soft palate make a little bit more of an adjustment here, it might give you better response when you went up. So can you do, well, like suppose if this was an audition for a commercial and you were going to make $1 million if you got this commercial, and I said to you, I want you to pretend you're somebody with a cold or an allergy and you're almost going to sneeze. So you're going to do okay? So you do 3 or 4 fake sneezes and then you sing. Okay, good. Now that time you did 1, 8, 1, 8, 1. So you went too far in the middle, but right now I'm not going to worry about that. Now, that was a better high note because that soft palate lifting actually got you on the pitch a little bit more. So for teachers, this is an acoustic change. She's actually hearing the right note in her mind. But because the throat's not responding a whole lot yet, the acoustic adjustment that has to happen for her to stay on that pitch in this quality was a little sluggish, and therefore it seems like out here we would read that as being under pitch. So this is it's a statement. It's not that she doesn't hear the notes. She does, but it doesn't necessarily coordinate in the throat as accurately as it will get to. But was that sound belty? Oh yeah, that was pretty belty. Okay, so this is not a difficult quality for Rebecca to do vocally. The harder part for her is the coordination of the pitch itself in this quality accurately. Okay, so that's a different kind of a coordination issue. But the sound itself, is she having any trouble? It doesn't look like it. Rebecca, does that cost you anything to do that?
No.
Doesn't sound like it. Okay? So this is a wonderful example of 2 young women who are different, have different instruments, different tendencies and capacities, both approximately the same age, and both of whom are typical of students that you all might have as teachers. And so these are the issues that come up. And so Rebecca, concentration-wise, it's hard to think about several things at once. I mean, it just, we can't do that. That's not how the brain works. So the most important thing for you to do here, now, with me, is to think about those ratios between the notes, so that your brain knows where it's going to tell you. Your brain is telling where your throat to go from here to here to here to here. And I would say right now, don't worry too much about anything other than that, except maybe try to keep the volume comfortable. Okay, so let's try this whole thing again. Ah, so it's 1, 5, 1, 8, 1, but on ah. You just keep thinking that same thought, whatever you were doing. And if you want to use your hands, if that helps you, go ahead. Good. That one was flat. Okay, so what that means is it didn't move enough from the first note to the second note. It didn't get lighter, and it didn't go into the sneezy place. So think of that and do it again. That worked. That's cool. One more. That's the top end of chest register, and that was a little stuck, but not better. So now sing glad, like the word glad, only just the front part. Glad, 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 and deliberately sound kind of bratty kitty and not very nice. Yeah, glad, glad, glad.
Glad, 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 glad.
Good.
Glad, 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 glad.
Now, this is a sidebar. I'm talking about you again, like a specimen. These pitches are accurate because this is a lighter sound. and it's easier to coordinate the pitch in a lighter sound. So this is this is a coordination thing, and the throat is easier, having an easier time here. It's not like all of a sudden Rebecca grew new ears about how to listen to the pitches. This is not because she doesn't hear the pitches. She hears them, but they don't always get out the way her brain hears, and that's a brain thing. So this exercise is easier, and this is why everybody who teaches belting uses some form of nasality as a doorway. It's almost impossible not to do that and get anywhere, okay? So, do I want her to go around singing like that? No, of course not. But is that an easier way for the whole position inside to move? Yeah. So we use that as a scaffolding until we don't need it anymore. But Rebecca, those were good. Do it again, right? Okay. Yeah, yeah, gla, 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 gla.
Gla, 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 gla.
Good.
Gla, 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 gla.
Now make sure you take a good breath in first.
Gla, 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 gla.
Good. Stay loud.
Gla, 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 gla.
One more. Now when you get to the high note, let your gla be just a little bit more of a slightly nicer sound, not so nasal.
Gla, 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 gla.
Almost. Do it again.
Gla, 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 gla.
Come down.
Gla, 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 gla.
Now try gla, but be happy about it. Gla.
Gla, 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 gla.
Nice.
Gla, 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 gla.
Now, Rebecca, does that sound belty to you?
Not as much as the one.
Right, right. So you have to adjust your expectations a little bit about not driving the chesty sound so hard because it's causing you pitch problems. Okay? When you backed off just a little bit, then your throat was like, oh, I can do this, no problem. And then you didn't have as many pitch issues, and that has to do with the back, basically that there's not a lot of pressure here on the back of your throat, which I am absolutely certain you're not doing on purpose. You're not trying to press on the back of your throat. I don't think you're doing that. But as a result of you singing more in your chesty voice, that kind of came along for the ride. Okay? And then teachers, that happens. Sometimes, in order to get the student to do something, you create an unwanted behavior that comes along for the ride. And then you think, ugh, now what? I got one thing I was wanting, and I had one thing I didn't want. Tolerate it. Tolerate it. The only way you can get the person to do whatever they got to do is to let them do it the way they do it. And then, after that happens for a while, you can go back and say, okay, now, let's fix this. And that could be a pitch, an intonation thing, it could be a breathing thing, it could be any other side effect. It is a side effect, and then you can work on it until it falls away. But if you're asking the student always like, well, get lighter, get lighter, get lighter, and then suddenly they're in heady sound, and you don't have the chesty sound anymore, well, your remedy was to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And then you think, well, gee, why isn't the belting getting better? Right? So sometimes you and the student has to go past a place that would be really perfect, and then you have to let that be for a while. You have to check in and see if the student is straining or turning blue. Obviously, you don't do that, but she's okay. She's a strong, sturdy young woman. And then you can go back and nitpick some of these little issues and the brain, trying to get a better coordination of how do you think of intonation? Huh? How do you think of intonation? What do you tell the person? Think sharp? Think flat? You can't do that unless you have maybe extremely good perfect pitch. But the rest of it's relative pitch is relative to what you hear and what you feel. So, Rebecca, let's do one more and we'll say, let's do, I want to go to your house. And we're going to stay on the louder side of speech. I want to go to your house. Do that.
I want to go to your house.
Go on.
I want to go to your house. I want to go to your house.
Now, when you get to go, open your mouth a lot. Go.
I want to go to your house.
One more.
I want to go to your house.
Okay, now by your own estimate, if 1 is pianissimo and 10 is fortissimo, how loud were all of those?
7-ish.
Okay? Yeah, okay. I want at least 7. Okay, you could do an 8. See what happens. Go on.
I want to go to your house.
Nice. It might crack. Let it crack.
I want to go to your house.
Yeah, that was good. That was a C sharp. That's nice. It's a mixier chest, but it's a perfectly serviceable one. It's nice. Sing, it is a very nice day. It is a very nice day.
It is a very nice day.
Loud on the bottom note.
It is a very nice day.
Now, consciously make your first note in chest. It is. It is a very nice day.
It is a very nice day.
Yeah, get down there. Ho, ho, ho. Let this change.
It is a very nice day.
Yes, that's good.
It is a very nice day.
Excellent. Excellent. One more. Nice and low on the bottom note. It is a very nice day.
It is a very nice day.
Excellent. So as you came lower that time, you deliberately went into chest register, and guess what? The pitches were better. Yay! Do you have any questions?
No.
No? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really want to thank you. You've done really great work with Michelle. I want you to keep working. Done a really great job. And everybody's going to give you virtual applause. Yay. Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for being a student. Okay, Billy, questions?
All right, we have lots of questions, so we're going to just have to lightning through them. Okay, so from the beginning, you were talking about open and closed quotient, and there was a question asking if you were implying that a classical style has a more open or closed quotient, and if it was more open than closed.
Not always. Sometimes a very loud dramatic voice has a very long closed quotient, sometimes as much as 80% closed quotient, which is similar to belting. So it depends. If it's a light lyric voice, yes, then it's a more open quotient. It depends on the person and the vocal production.
When you were talking about people's ability to become a belter, you said that it has something to do with personal boundaries. Does that mean boundaries or limits of their instrument, or an emotional boundary, maybe both?
Well, the first boundary is physical. You know, if you drive the instrument past where it's comfortable, you will definitely make the person tired and cause problems. And the second issue, of course, is comfort, and that includes emotional comfort. Although it's my experience that if you coax the throat, you are also actually coaxing the person. You're actually coaxing the human being. And if they really are willing to learn how to make that sound, they won't be so scared of it if they know their throat is not going to hurt or it's not going to sound so horrible that they can't control it. And so it's very hard, in a way, to separate the two. But if I were choosing, I would say first, try to find a comfortable place for the sound to come, because then the human being part is going to be more willing to make that sound and get comfortable. This is why we don't want to say to a student, well, you're afraid, you're holding back. Jeez, you know what? If my throat didn't feel good and I was going to sound bad and feel bad, I'd hold back too. That's a natural reaction. You know, you ask somebody to stand naked in Times Square, they're going to be embarrassed. Well, you shouldn't be embarrassed. Everybody has a naked body. What kind of idea is that? So what we try to do is get the throat to go where it has to go as comfortably as possible and let the student get used to that. And then check in, do you like that? Well, yeah, okay, good. So get used to that. Before you try to stand the throat on its head or force the person to go so far past where they're psychologically willing to go, is that they run away. Because then you've done more harm than good. Okay, what else?
What is the physicality between not being able to switch sustainably between classical and belting styles?
It's the same physiologic adjustment as if you were going to go from ballet to tap, except in a smaller space. It's not easy. If you really sing classical music the way classical music has to get sung, and you're not just a hack, the discipline of singing classical music is specific. You have to have a legato, you have to have vibrato that's regular and even, you have to be able to create certain resonances, you have to be able to match the vowels, you have to be able to keep the articulation clear but not so clear that you chop up the line. You have to be able to sustain volume. All of those things are peculiar to classical singing, and most CCM stuff, nobody cares. In classical, in CCM singing, you have different criteria for different styles. Jazz singers are often interested in fluidity and, of course, pitch accuracy so that they can improvise freely, and they want a fairly wide range. They want to sound like themselves, produce some kind of artificial sound. A music singer has to be able to tell a story and be a character and sing the vocal quality that's specified by the composer in the music. So all of those are complicated and specific disciplines that you can learn, but it's like being in a triathlon where you're going to be doing a long jump and throwing whatever they call that thing, and jumping, and I don't know, discus, whatever it is, those three things. You have to train for those things. You don't just do them. Okay?
Great. Can you touch a little bit on playing with mix or changing colors within a belt? I primarily teach pop rock music, and we're not full-on belting all the time.
Well, you shouldn't be full-on belting all the time or your students would be dead. Nobody's really meant to make that sound all the time. It's a very energetic thing to do. And like any other thing that's energetic, the body needs time to recover, to recuperate. People don't run marathons every day. You know, you have to recover if you run a marathon. And so the stamina over time to do whatever you're going to do that's stressful is also something that comes over months and years. And anytime you can cheat the sound to make it more mixy, but still sound appropriate to the music, it's better to do that. And oftentimes it's very, very small adjustment, and then suddenly it's sustainable, and nobody knows that the adjustment was made except the singer and maybe the teacher. So the goal then becomes how to cheat, how to say, I'm going to sing this with the least amount of expenditure of energy I can do and still do it, as opposed to full out all the time for no good reason other than I think I should do that. If you're singing mostly pop rock music, the more you can integrate a headier, lighter quality into the upper middle pitches without having it be an obvious change, the better. Okay?
Great. You've worked with a lot of very big name artists. Can we talk about what happens when people go on big tours and they have to take time off for a period of vocal rest?
Well, if you factor in the stress that being a working performer, all of the things, and this is, prior to the pandemic, but being on a plane which is very dry, and then being in a hotel room where you have to futz around with the air conditioning, and then the physical fatigue of traveling, dragging your suitcases, all of that. And then maybe as soon as you get there, you have to go rehearse, and you have to deal with the sound system, and you have to deal with the venue. And maybe if it's a big enough gig, you also have to talk to the press, or you have to have a photo shoot, or you have to have a special rehearsal with the band. Think of all that all the time, everywhere you go. And then you have the stress of just keeping your body strong, keeping your body rested, eating properly. Every bit of that impacts how a person sustains. And if you have not had a lifetime of working on functional vocal training, that is to say, to keep the instrument strong and resilient, free, and supported by the body and its ability to inhale and have good posture, then incrementally you have a more likelihood that you're going to have a problem. And then if you add in additional outside factors, like if you're a female and you're either premenstrual or menstrual, or if you are allergic to dust and pollen in a theater, and or you were coming down with a cold, how many of those factors can you tolerate and still perform? So the artists who have natural talent, natural ability, they make a recording, they get famous, they get popular, they go out and they tour, and then the instrument, these two little bitty tiny vocal cords, pays the price, and then suddenly they have no choice but to quit, because not to quit, to not drop out, runs the risk of hemorrhaging or causing a severe polyp, and then that could stop the career for the whole rest of your life. So it's not worth it, and that's why we have a laryngologist to say, no, these vocal folds are not going to support a performance. It's very difficult to substitute vocal training after the fact, and a lot of artists in various styles resist training because they don't want to be turned into opera singers, and I don't blame them. They don't want to have to be told, well, first you have to learn to sing like, I don't know, Renee Fleming, and then you can learn to sing like Beyonce. Makes no sense. So of course they don't get training that could be helpful to them, and if we as teachers would train them to function the way they need to function, but still using all the ingredients we know about how it is that people make healthy sound, and then they still have to learn what is vocal hygiene, what is vocal health, and how do you deal with all those other factors. You can't prevent somebody from having an injury, but you would make it less likely.
Great. The next question is, does a higher voice have an ability to belt higher than a lower instrument, i.e. soprano versus contralto, tenor versus baritone, etc.?
Well, there's no research to prove that that's true, but I'm going to say to you that I think in my life experience, yes, that the lighter, higher voices are going to also belt higher as well, and that it's a little easier. However, they don't make as impressive a sound as the lower, fuller voices do, and it's like when you go and hear somebody who is a gangbusters belter, it's usually not the light lyric voices that you're drawn to. That's not what impresses us. So then it becomes a question of if the person is relying on electronics, which is to say, the sound has a lot of effects on it, then that's going to give you something different than if you're dealing with something that's more or less acoustic. Like, for instance, a Broadway show is still maybe boosted in terms of volume, but they don't really run most of the shows. They don't really run it through any kind of an effect. So it's a trade-off in a way. And the natural capacity of the instrument does have an effect on all of those things.
Great. The next question, I'm going to lump two together. Can you affirm that belting uses more of your thyroarytenoid muscles than your cricothyroid muscle? So yes. Do elite belters often have physical bulking of the thyroarytenoid muscle as compared to elite classical singers? If so, how might cross-training as a belter affect the CT-dominant singing style of a predominantly classical singer?
Can't know that. No one has ever done a study of how much TA versus CT anybody has in anything. There is no literature on that. So if you make up stuff like that, or somebody told you that, they made it up in their sleep, in the shower. People who make statements that have not been backed up by legitimate research published in a peer-reviewed journal, and I'm talking about over time with a lot of people, and then it's just, the latest version of what they think they know. So the proportion of cricothyroid pull on the thyroid cartilage and the amount of breath pressure that the vocal folds can withstand in terms of subglottal pressure is very subjective and very personal, and is something which should be cultivated over time. So if you make flat statements about it's always this or it can only be that, you're always going to be wrong. There is no such thing. So you have to learn to discern the general parameters from the specific parameters from the individual parameters, and they're actually different.
Great. What are the boundaries for the professional and musical theater between belt and classical singing, especially with nowadays musical theater singers being required to be proficient in both styles and often switch between them in one song?
There are no classical singers on Broadway who stay in a classical sound unless they're in a revival. So somebody who leaves opera and comes to music theater and sings Light in the Piazza or Carousel or something of that nature isn't really crossing very far out of their classical sound. Somebody who's singing in Next to Normal or Tommy or Rent is not going to be a person who also is being asked to sing in the Music Man. Although in this upcoming Music Man, which was supposed to happen and isn't happening right now, Sutton Foster was supposed to be married, and she's a belter, and that show was written for Barbara Cook, who was a very high lyric soprano, so I don't know what they're going to do to it. But the people who work on Broadway are basically people who these days can sing a very strong, legit mix and then belt pretty far. And there's a few of the, especially the women, who can do that and be pretty comfortable, but you wouldn't hold their legit sound up to an operatic sound in the Metropolitan Opera House and say they were the same, because they're not.
Great. Can you explain the sniffing through your nose before inhalation?
I did.
Oh, sorry, they missed it. They asked specifically because they...
Because if you do that kind of fake sneezy thing, your soft palate is going to go up as a response in your central nervous system. It should, well, let's say, in a person who has a normal response. Now, you could have a very dead soft palate and a very undeveloped, unresponsive soft palate, in which case nothing works. For a long time, nothing works. And those people sing, and that's a dead soft palate. Okay. But if you can, through the face, through the tongue, get some feeling of respond, it'll go up a little tiny bit higher if you can do this fake sneezy thing. Or the other thing I rely on is happy surprise. And then you sing through that shape. Not foolproof, but leaning in a good direction.
Great. I think we only have time for one more question. And why does the nasty kid sound help? Is it because the soft palate is collapsed when we make this sound? I've been told a very raised palate and narrow vowels are needed for belting.
Oh, that's silly. Whoever told you that is talking out of their nostrils or something, Maybe that's what they do, but then who knows what they sound like. Belting is a function of the larynx, which has nothing to do with your soft palate. Okay? But the shape that you make inside, if you go into it's a kind of slightly less exaggerated semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. It's a smaller space. There's less work in a smaller space because it equalizes the breath pressure between your mouth and your throat, and that came out of the mouth of Dr. Inga Tietze, not me. And therefore, the palate comes along for the ride with the vowel sound, with the vowel quality. And the reason that is useful is because if you live in present moment circumstances, most of us have heard what a nasty kid sounds like. It's not a remote reference. I don't wanna, Mom. I mean, that's not far to find. So if you're trying to stimulate also the creative imagination, and the student needs to learn how to make all different kinds of sounds, use things that are common reference for people. Don't pick some obscure idea that no one's ever heard of. And then assume that when the interior mechanism begins to be more responsive and those behaviors start to arise spontaneously, you will hear that as an acoustic shift in the sound. In other words, the sound will sound different. That's how you know that the stuff inside is responding. Okay? That's also, a lot of us have been taught that effect is cause. No. Resonance is an effect. So you can't do an effect. Cause is make the sound. And what you can do in make the sound is go from chest to head. Those are doable changes. So whether or not you get a resonance out of that is arbitrary. There'll be some resonance or you would be inaudible. But manipulating resonance as a direct thing is a bad idea because resonance is an effect. On the piano, if you play a note, the hammer hits the string and the sounding board vibrates the air that the string is moving, and that's what gives the piano its resonance. You cannot make the sounding board vibrate. You can hit the key. So the thought process has to be grounded in teach cause, not effect. In a skilled singer who needs to generate specific resonances for classical repertoire, yeah, that you can do. But you got to have the other ingredients first. Okay?
Great. And very quickly before we wrap up, Dr. Karen Hall wanted to add something from her research about the origins of belting.
Right, and maybe it's a good wrap up because Jeannie started with this and Jeannie knows about it. I worked on my doctorate at Columbia Teachers College from 2002 to 2006, and I graduated. Jeannie, I had to do an internship with her because no one on my committee knew anything about music theater vocal pedagogy, and that's where it all began with her. But in researching the history of the sound, I was just stunned to one of the things I wrote about was that in the United States, the belting sound that African Americans made out in the fields when they were slaves, they called it the slaves hollering sound. It made me crazy, and it still does. And when I would give lectures, I would say, well, I think they had a lot to holler about. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you.
Especially given the times.
Especially at this present moment.
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, in the book by Henry Pleasance, Great American Popular Singers, which was written in the 80s, his explanation was that in the early days, they referred to this sound as coon shouting. And one of the multiple negative descriptors of African Americans was to call them coons.
Right.
Horrible, disgusting term. But that was what the sound was called, coon shouting, and then just shouting or yelling. And I agree that they had a lot to yell about. And there's a lot of racism in the cultural judgments about contemporary commercial music that prevented it from being considered worthy of academic research. Karen's Columbia was a groundbreaking doctorate. No one had ever done a doctorate on music theater vocal pedagogy in Columbia University Teachers College, and it was high time. And so it opened a lot of doors for other people to take this research seriously. And of course, I've been carrying this banner for a long time. I want to remind you, forgive me for my commercial, we are doing Baldwin Wallace this year online. If you want to do any of the levels, you can join us online from the comfort of your favorite chair. No hotel, no airfare, no meal plan. And we're going to have a great lineup. We've worked very hard on the schedule. We have great professional faculty and great outside guests. So let us know if you're interested. If you have any questions during the week, you can send them to Billy. And we're going to do 3 more sessions where we're going to be hands-on, practical, showing exercises, talking about what they do, talking about how they work, trying to find people who are representative. So if you have a student that you want me to work with, if you yourself want me to work with you, tell Billy, because we just select people from the ones that we know, trying to have an opportunity to work with 2 singers of different kinds to show some of these approaches. And with that, I will say thank you to everybody. Be well, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Bye.